Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And on today's video, I have a good one for you because today's video is the much anticipated update to the Mach X2 last year. Guys, this is the Hoka Mach X3. Let's get into it. Alright, thanks for sitting through that intro. Okay guys, I got some thoughts on this shoe. Now, first of all, you may remember last year when I reviewed the Mach X2 that I was actually a big fan, right? And I remember saying this, I remember saying that the Mach X2 had shoe of the year potential if it wasn't for one thing. And that one thing, of course, I'm sure you all know, but it was the heel collar. It was the heel counter. It was thin, it was floppy, it was much more like a race day shoe. Which in my mind, that is exactly where the Mach X series needs to be, right? Maybe not a race day shoe, but a really fast up-tempo trainer. So even though the Mach X2 just wasn't ideal in the heel, I did get just a little bit of heel slip, or not so much heel slip, but I could feel my heel was a little loose. I know that a lot of you that ran in the Mach X2 did have heel issues and you had some rubbing back there, and that just won't fly. So, you know, that among some other things are what Hoka has changed. But first of all, if you want to pick up the pair of the Mach X3, you can. And the good news is that the price hasn't gone up from the Mach X2. It'll still cost $190. And the Mach X3 does fit true to size for Hoka. Now, if you've been watching many of my videos, you know that, sometimes I'll wear 12, often I'll wear 12 and a half. Most of the time I wear 13. In Hokas, I always wear a US men's size 12 and a half. And that just seems to fit me the best. If I don't, they seem to be just a little long. But the Hoka Mach X3 does have 44 in the heel, 39 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. And Hoka claims that in a US men's size 10, the Mach X3 would hit the scale at 10.2 ounces or 289 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12 and a half, it'll hit the scale at 11.08 ounces or 313 grams. So when we look at the competition, the Mach X3 is not too much heavier. In fact, actually, I shouldn't say it that way. When we look at the competition, the Mach X3 is actually pretty light. But also, not a significant, I don't know if it's actually significant, but there has been a weight increase. Last year in the Mach X2, my pair tipped the scale at 293 grams. So just from year to year, there has been a 20-gram increase in my size from the Mach X2 to the Mach X3. You know, that's typically not what we like to see, going from one shoe year to the next, but it is what it is. There have been some changes, and I'm quite sure for a lot of you, those changes are going to be worth that extra 20 grams. If you're a US men's size 12 and a half, it's going to be less if you wear a smaller size. So as we do, let's start at the top and we're going to work our way down. And look, you can see this heel collar. There is just a lot more structure to it. There's a lot more padding. We have a fairly traditional kind of elf ear at the top to help you pull the shoe on. And this heel collar is quite rigid. So when you put your foot into the Mach X3, you are going to get a very comfortable step-in feel. It's going to feel nice around your ankle. And more than that, this rigid heel counter is really going to prevent the shoe from slipping in your heel. We also have this extra hole right at the top in case you wanted to do that heel lock lacing method, right? Seems like Hoka has just made all the changes to make the Mach X3 a much more welcoming shoe for most people. And you know what? I suppose I can't fault them. I suppose as a business, that is where they need to go. Now, the upper has also been changed. Hoka has changed it to a warp knit. It's actually quite good. It's fairly light and very breathable. Like, I've got no complaints on the upper, even though I do like how the upper looked on the Mach X2 a little better. The laces work. They tied my shoe down nicely. As far as overlays go, there really aren't too many. Obviously, we've got the Hoka branding there on the lateral side. There's an underlay around the toe box. There's like a little overlay right here. It's probably reflective, and some overlays on the heel. Of course, we've got the reinforcement coming along the eyelet chain, which brings us nicely to the tongue. It's exactly what I like to see on a shoe. It is thick, but it's in like a super trainer kind of thickness. I suppose it's thick for a super trainer, but it's not too thick. It does provide the cushioning that I need to stop those laces from biting into the top of my foot. The tongue is not gusseted. There is a lace loop on the front, and all that to say, I had no issues with the tongue. The tongue didn't migrate from side to side. When I put the shoe on, the tongue stayed right in place. Let's come down to the midsole, and the midsole actually hasn't changed from last year. But remember, I'll tell you again, I thought the Mach X2 had shoe of the year potential. It was only because of the heel. So Hoka has fixed the heel. Now back to the midsole. Same midsole from the Mach X2. This top layer right here is PBA. You can see we have more PBA in the front, and then right below this plate, which is a P-Bax plate, a plastic plate, but right below that plate is an EVA layer, and that EVA layer gets a little thicker in the heel and then thins out in the forefoot. Now this EVA layer is there because, well, I'm sure you already know, because so many brands actually do a dual density setup with their shoes. We have the firmer foam on the bottom, which creates a little bit of stability. When you have a super plush foam like the PIBA here on the top, it allows you to have the illusion of some ground feel by having just that slightly firmer foam on the bottom. It's also going to be a little more resilient than the PIBA foam, so the shoe is going to last longer because of this EVA foam on the bottom. And then these bits of the P-Bax plate that you can see here on the lateral side, these are the little winglets, and these just come out like stabilizers on a boat. Right, when you're running, they are going to keep you moving in the right direction. Now, if we come down to the outsole, first of all, you can see we've got a lot of exposed midsole foam. There is quite a bit of rubber, I suppose. I mean, Hoka doesn't want to like cover the whole thing in rubber because rubber is quite heavy. But you know, I think we've got enough. If I look at my lateral heel area, I'm seeing just the typical amount of wear, nothing that is concerning. I'm going to say that the Mach X3 are going to last an appropriate, meaning average amount of time. Got a couple of cutouts here for the windows, for the plate in there. And overall, a very good shoe. Here's the thing. I think because of my opinion of the Mach X2 last year, I think I came into the Mach X3 this year with some very high expectations. Like, even though that heel was such a problem for so many people, and you know, it was somewhat of a problem for me, I still took out the Mach X2 all the time and I had a great time in them. But my expectations were up there. And then I saw the Mach X3 at TRE last year very briefly. I didn't get a chance to wear it or anything. But the one thing that I noticed was this heel. And I thought, oh, they fixed it. Gosh, it's going to be amazing. Well, here's the thing. Enough time has passed where my memories of the Mach X2 are just hinged in the light of a setting sun. It's absolutely beautiful. I remember that shoe probably better than it was. And by the way, I no longer have it. I wish I would have held on to it, but I did donate it maybe a couple of months ago now. Anyway, so what we've got is a vastly improved upper, and we've got the same midsole foam. And yet, when I took the Hoka Mach X3 out on the run, if I'm perfectly honest, I just wasn't wowed. It's a good shoe. It does what it's supposed to do. I think it's a very versatile shoe. I think it worked for me very well when I was running easy. And this is technically a super trainer, and it did pick up the pace well. And it still didn't wow me. And I'm not sure why. Because this setup is exactly the same, and I really like the Mach X2. Now, I think there's a couple factors at play here, and I think the main factor is looks. Okay, I'll be perfectly honest. I like the look of the Mach X2 a lot better than I like the look of the Mach X3. Should that really play a difference in how the shoe feels to me? No, absolutely not. I don't spend my times out on the run looking down at my feet. So we can probably rule that out. The main thing that I have come up with as to why I wasn't like wowed by the Mach X3 is the competition. I think we've seen a lot of competition since the Mach X2. So I don't want you to think that I'm just bagging on the Mach X3. I think it's a great shoe. I think if you are a Hoka runner, I think you're going to like it. But when I just think about some of the competition out there, I think the competition may work better for me than the Mach X3 this year. And maybe my preferences have changed. And maybe I am influenced by this yellow colorway. Although the yellow colorway and this blue shirt do go together very well. But let's just talk a little bit more about the ride, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to be really into this shoe. And as far as the ride goes, you are mainly going to be taking this shoe out when you want to run fast. So think those tempo miles, marathon pace, that half marathon pace. I think the Mach X3 will work well for intervals, and I found it to be a very stable shoe. Now, if I hold it up, you can see we do have a little bit of sole flare here. I did not find the Mach X3 to be overly narrow, which some Hoka shoes can feel a little narrow. My foot fit in there beautifully. I had plenty of room in the toe box, and Hoka does offer these in wide versions. So if you have a wide foot, you're set up. And look, the price at $190 is right in line with everything else. In fact, if you are looking at picking up a pair of the Hoka Mach X3, you might also be looking at the Brooks Hyperion Max 3. And the Brooks Hyperion Max 3 it's quite comparable, although it's a bit of a beast compared with a Mach X3, because this thing in my size tips the scale at 349 grams. So it weighs 36 grams more than my size of the Mach X3. And it'll cost you $200, so $10 more than the Mach X3. And we have a little more stack height. The Hyperion Max 3 has 46 in the heel, 40 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop, but this is what you're going to be looking at if you're comparing this type of shoe. Next up, you might also be looking at the New Balance SC Trainer V3. Now, the SC Trainer V3 is the same price, $190. We have 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop, and in my size tips the scale at 329 grams. The SC Trainer V3 weighs 16 grams more than the Mach X3. Do you see what I mean? Even though the weight of the Mach X3 went up, it's still right in line with the competition, and even better in most cases. And finally, you might also be looking at the Nike Zoom Fly 6. Now the Zoom Fly 6 is a little cheaper, it's $180, so $10 cheaper than the Mach X3. It's a little lighter at 312 grams, and by lighter I mean 1 gram lighter. And we have a little less stack height. We have 42 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. So when we look at the competition, it becomes clear that the Hoka Mach X3 is in line with the competition, right? Hoka has answered the brief. And here's the thing. I know that this is just a personal opinion, but all three of those other shoes seem to me just to have something, a little more excitement. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. Well, I can put my finger on it, it's going to be the ride. But what I cannot really put my finger on is why my opinion has changed so much from the Mach X2 last year, which I absolutely love. And now the Mach X3 that's a bit of a meh. But guys, now I want to hear from you. Remember, I am just one person and every shoe is not going to work for all of us. Just a bit of a conundrum why I really liked a shoe that was almost identical, except maybe a little worse in the other, but such is life. Anyway, let me know if you have run in the Mach X2, if you're thinking of picking up a pair of the Mach X3, or if you've run in any of the competition. Drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the Hoka Mach X3. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.